Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming back to X-Rays, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm your host, Miles, and since we've been diving deep into the themes of leadership, learning, and the future work, we're going right to the heart of it because we're going to talk about artificial intelligence today. Yes, the thing that's been writing emails faster than we can think them, answering questions before we finish typing them, and sometimes scaring us just a little with how human it seems. So, to unpack the reality behind the buzz and help us understand AI, ChatGPT, and chatbot beyond the hype, we're joined by someone who's been guiding organizations toward excellence and ethical innovation long before AI became a boardroom headline. You might know him from our previous episodes leading an international educational organization that's all about accelerating continuous improvement, not just in systems, but in people. With over 40 years of experience driving corporate responsibility, sustainability, and capability across industries worldwide, here's the Managing Director and CEO of ACI Global and e-Quip, Ian Erskine. Hi, Ian. Welcome back.
Yes, and thanks for having me back again, and certainly welcome. And I trust not only yourself, Miles, but all our listeners had a wonderful weekend.
Yes.
And as I said before we came on air, I'm going to be sharing a couple of photos of uh, what I was able to achieve in our garden over the weekend. And in a couple of words, it's true environmental sustainability at work by ourselves, and
Mhm.
anyone can do it. And I'll be sharing those with you. But yes, it's lovely to be back. A beautiful day. Lovely to be here with you and your infectious smile.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
as we always know, that's a sure sign that your brain is working to full capacity and
Thank God.
and and demonstrating for everyone to see.
Yes, I have to say, today's topic feels especially timely. Everywhere we turn, AI is being celebrated, feared, or misunderstood sometimes all at once. So let's start with this AI and ChatGPT. They have become such buzzwords lately that it almost feels like everyone's talking about them, but not everyone truly understands what they are or how they fit into business strategy. So, from your perspective, Ian, should we start to rethink AI, ChatGPT, and other chatbots in reference to their potential and now, the now known threats to information security, people, jobs, and organizations?
Yes, well, in a nutshell, yes, we certainly should. And give you a bit of an idea, I think we need to step back and ask ourselves the question in reference to, are we seeing openness and transparency from the players that are providing this technology to us? Are we seeing the ability to be able to discuss and learn more about it? Now, if we ask those two questions, to both those, the answer is no. Now, to re-emphasise this, when we were on our tour of the UK and France, when we got on the plane to fly from Singapore to London,
Mhm.
walking down the air bridge to the plane, there was a picture of a man and a mirror image side by side. Directly underneath the picture of the man was a bold statement, "Can you spot the difference?" Now, they were talking about AI. It went on to talk about AI, how clever AI was.
Mhm.
Now, I immediately thought to myself, and I wouldn't be alone, how devious can you be? Are you trying to demonstrate that you can falsify an image of a person? And the answer to that is yes.
Mhm.
What they did was miss or turned it around to make it that the smile was not the same, right? Now, one should then ask yourself your question, why should we have technology that can do that? And I always then say to myself, look, 99.9% of people on this planet are open, transparent, and ethical. But
Mhm.
there are a few, and there are good and bad apples everywhere, right?
Right.
But there are a few which are going to use this technology to defraud, misrepresent, and do us harm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that we're looking at now, is to see how we can do that. Because the answer, obviously, to your question, yes, it is now a threat, right? And that threat basically is based on an unknown knowledge of what we're actually dealing with here. And we'll discuss this further as we go on. But to answer your question, yes, that's our concerns.
Yes, thank you. And it really highlights how tech can't be separated from people and the process. It's indeed a tool that should enhance rather than replace human capability. And, I remember in one of our previous conversations, Ian, you mentioned that innovation without direction can easily turn into disruption. That brings me to this next thought. Do you think people actually know enough about ChatGPT, chatbots, and AI? Because while everyone's using them, from students to CEOs, founders, I sometimes wonder if their popularity is mistaken for understanding. Should we, as organizations and individuals, be doing more to determine their suitability for people and their organizations?
Well, the answer to that is definitely no.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I guess experience tells me. As you know, we have implemented, we have tested, and then we have taken it completely away from our website, right? Purely because we couldn't get it to work. It's certainly not heading in the direction that we want to go, because everything that is being displayed at the moment is a lack of transparency, questionable ethics, and this is not something that we want to be involved in. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when you ask yourself the question, do we really know enough about it? This is really where it got me thinking, because wherever I go, whenever I do my audits, I'm now asking people, are they using AI? And some people say, no, definitely we wouldn't have touched it with a barge pole. But the people that are, oh, yes, we're finding it very good and so forth, very easy, makes everything a lot easier. But when I explain to them, when you put your email address in, then put all your information in, or if you want to test one of your processes out, put it through so AI can check it out. So you actually go into the AI program through chatbot, right? And people don't realize the moment you put that in and say, click and say, AI, check that or rewrite that for me, that's taken away, put
Mm-hmm.
into a huge data center. And because AI is not all that clever when you stop and think about it, because all it does is review what's in there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's thousands and thousands and thousands of bits of data, right? Now, we're talking about a process, so that process goes out there. All AI does was puts it in with everything else, spits it out, and it comes back as a generic process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I explain to my clients, I say, well, okay, you show me that revised process. So they put the revised process up beside the original process. And I say, okay, you tell me in the original process where you built into it the uniqueness to your business.
Mm-hmm.
So they can pinpoint that. Then they go and have a look at the AI version, and that's gone. Because what AI has done, it's just like a data researching tool. So it just goes into the database, right? Searches through and finds all these processes, pinpoints, yeah, they're the same, puts it all together, makes a slight adjustment, maybe a slight adjustment to the one that's just been put in, then
Mm-hmm.
spits it back out to you. And all of a sudden you have a process which is generic
Yeah.
and missing the uniqueness of what is required.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, this was emphasised to me when I was sitting beside a project engineer on the flight across from Australia to Singapore. He proudly said, "No, that's the way it works." And I said, "Well, so the project here in Sydney is going to lose its uniqueness,
Mm-hmm.
right?" And he said, "Well, of course it does, because we put it all together and that makes it all the stronger." And I said, "No, think of different safety issues. Safety issues are different all across the world, unique to all situations, and have to be dealt that way, and can only be dealt with by personal intelligence, human intelligence, one on one, people to people. Can't be
Yeah.
dealt with by simply saying, oh, shut my brain off. I'm not going to use my brain. I'm going to let it go out into a big data center for a machine to thrash it into something to come back to me.
Uh-huh.
Eventually, we'll become so lazy, and in actual fact, the decision's going to be made if we don't stop it. But we'll eventually say, oh, we don't need to go to work anymore. Just switch AI,
Mhm.
AI, let the robots come in and do the work for me. I'll stay at home. Then
Yeah,
all of a sudden, you're going to be in a position, oh, where's the money going to come in if I'm not going to come in? That's the point we need to think.
exactly. Yeah. And good thing you also mentioned about the lack of transparency and safety, Ian, because those are definitely some of the main concerns. I mean, the excitement is there, but without proper understanding, it's a recipe for confusion or even damage. And that
Yes.
leads us perfectly to the next point, how this technology is affecting our everyday communication. The line between automation and intelligence seems to blur more every day when it comes to chatbots and AI, conversational AI. How do you see these technologies, or perhaps how should they be reshaping communication and engagement, both inside organizations and in our personal lives?
Well, I always thought this was ending up to be a difficult question, and I've taken quite a long time to consider this.
Uh-huh.
We've been researching this and going through this probably close on 3 years now. And quite frankly, I can't see how AI can take any part of being part of a communication process.
Mhm.
When we talk about a communication process, it's what you and I are doing at the moment. We're looking at each other. I pose a question, you pose a question, your facial recognition shows me if you're questioning what I'm saying, if I'm saying something that pleases you or agrees with your thinking, your face mirrors that, you smile, the grin comes on, that infectious smile. That's communication between you and I,
Mhm. The human
people to
element.
people. That's right. You
Mhm.
can never replace that with a machine.
Mhm.
And the other question I would say is, why would we ever want to do that? And this is where we come to the point of openness and transparency. Why are we having AI, chatbot, GPT, and others thrust upon us to take this away from us? This is what people want to do. People want to be able to be together, talking, laughing, grinning, concerned if something is said that you don't totally agree with, because true human beings, if I say something that you don't necessarily agree with, you will pose back a question to me, basically saying, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, Ian. This is my point of view, and this is how we all learn, because more often than not, I would sit back and think, well, Miles, you've actually posed something that I hadn't thought of,
Mhm.
and I can now take that on board, right? But if I didn't agree, you don't hate the person for it. You just move on,
Yeah.
because we are all different.
Mhm.
AI and machines should not and to me will not take any part of how a learning management system operates people to people, because it can't.
Mm-hmm. And I reckon that's a balanced take, Ian. I completely agree. And I'm really happy that I'm not gonna be replaced by a machine. It's not about replacing connection with convenience, but rather about finding smarter ways to communicate without losing the human element. Because once empathy goes out the window, even the best AI can't bridge that gap. I'm pretty sure. And speaking of balance, that brings us to one of the biggest conversations in tech right now, Ian. ethics. You know, there's a lot of discussions today about the ethical and responsible use of AI. You even mentioned one earlier, from data privacy to human oversight. How is ACI Global approaching that balance between embracing AI's potential and maintaining trust, accountability, and ethical integrity?
Well, this is where, again, I repeat the point. At this stage, we've completely stopped using it, and the organisations that I'm talking with are now basically embracing that. At this stage, we're not using it because we can't. It's not demonstrating to us that openness and that transparency. Until we get that, I think people need to stop and put a hold on everything, right? And again, this comes back to my experience and talking to people. Now, I've been talking to a number of people that have been very heavily involved in the production and the demonstration of how to use algorithms, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, speaking with these people some 18 months, nearly 2 years ago, they were the embracement and the enthusiasm was palpable. They were absolutely over the mill, tickle pink, how things were moving. And this is less than 6 or 8 months ago. China dumped their chatbot onto the world scene, and the excitement was there, right? But now these people are honestly questioning where this is actually going. And the main point they're questioning is how much do we really know in reference to where that data is going? And
Right.
I take people back to our experience. For nearly 2 years now, we've been asking for our information, which we put on, because a chatbot doesn't work by itself. You have to actually put the information in, right, for it to work and be relevant to your organisation. Now, we did all that, right? Now, for 2 years, I've been asking for that information back. Nothing. Not an answer.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's just too hard. No, we can't get it back. And now, if I put my brain to work and I think and I say, okay, and I take the exercise in reference to the people on the metro coming from the outer suburbs into the city, right? Literally everyone is glued to their mobile phones. Everyone has AI on their mobile phone. So all that information is being dragged from them into the
Mm-hmm.
data center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, how on earth are they ever going to find a certain person's information, let alone ACI Global's information? How are they ever going to find it? That's the number one question I say, right? Now, if they have that technology, okay, send it back. I want my information back.
Mm-hmm.
And I have stumbled across a website which has AI, and the first thing, the moment you click on that AI chatbot, there's an information security data statement there for you to understand.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Just understand that the information that we are taking from you will be held, right? There was nothing else in that which said it can be returned. It
Mm-hmm.
just simply said, be aware we are going to use your information
Mm-hmm.
for others. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, until such times as there's a statement when you click on that chatbot that says, okay, we are gathering your information, but if you require it back, sign the information security statement and it will be returned to you.
Yeah.
If that was part of the process, right, I'd be far more comfortable to start to do further testing just to see what role it could fit in. But I would make the statement it will never, ever replace people, will never, ever replace human intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we allow that to happen, we'll end up with robots taking over all our jobs. And again, I go back to you, my dear. I have spoken to you about how good you are at what you do to senior management. And I said to them, you are their greatest asset because you are at the forefront of what X-rays is all about. You demonstrate that empathy, that professionalism, right? And I'm sorry, no robot will ever replace young Miles, ever.
Thank you for that. It makes me really it's flattering. And
No,
I
it's not.
want to ask a
It's true.
follow-up. Thank you so much for your kind words. And I want to ask a follow-up question, if I may, for you, related to what you just said, Ian. I've seen in your website, you've even launched a new course titled Understanding AI, ChatGPT, and Chatbots. Is that your first step toward helping organizations build that responsible foundation?
Yes, it certainly is, and it's borne by something that the gentleman said to me in reference to the work they've done on algorithms and things like that. And he
Mhm.
asked me, he said, "Urko, do you have any courses in reference to AI and chatbot?" And
Uh-huh.
I immediately said, "For AI, yes, it's all built on the standards and so forth." And then all of a sudden, I thought to myself, "My God, I'm an idiot." That's a standards point of view. It's not a real point of view of where chatbot and AI sit in the human nature of things,
Mhm.
where we can go back, ACI Global and myself can go back for all our testing, speaking with our candidates, speaking with our clients, and they've collectively have all come back and said, no, no, we want to be able to speak to a real person. And again,
Mhm.
you often come up in that. The people say to me when they come onto our website, they go down and have a look at our podcast, and they say they take one look at your lovely voice and your smile, your mannerisms, your enthusiasm, and they say, Ian, AI, chatbot, and robots will never ever, should never ever face up in ACI Global.
Mhm.
Hence, we've taken that away and we put the human face on our website,
Yeah.
right? And I guess, and to be honest, the only difficulty we are still having is because we have so much information, and often I get the question, how many courses do we have? And I say, well, we have something like 200, 250 courses.
Mhm.
The difficulty in trying to demonstrate you have 250 courses plus leadership training, the podcast, e-Quip, the learning management, there's a lot there. How we ultimately will end up, I think, will be a simpler message, right? And a few simpler buttons to put on our website so people understand where to go and find it. But at all times, we
Mhm.
want people to understand, pick up the phone and speak to someone, whether it's Miles through the podcast or whether it's myself or the lovely girls here at ServeCorp who put through to myself and other members of ACI Global. This is where ultimately we are going to end up. We will
Mhm.
not end up using a chatbot and a machine to do that part of understanding of where you're going to end up to start your learning journey. That
Mhm.
has to be people to people and an explanation. And again, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was speaking to one of our clients that came to us just after after we started our UK journey. And
Okay.
I just sent him a text. I said, "Look, I'm overseas, but I'll respond when we get back," and so forth. And
Mhm.
when I rang him yesterday, I think we spent 10, nearly 15 minutes talking about how good it was. Where did you go? What was the
Yeah.
highlight? Some of the things that you want to remember. And that is again a demonstration of people to people.
Uh-huh.
And I make the point, we may in time use AI to assist in some ways, but it will never, ever replace people,
I
will
agree.
never, ever replace human intelligence.
Mhm. And I love that you're starting with education, Ian. It's just refreshing to see an organization like yours focusing on helping people understand the technology rather than just warning them about it. Because
Yeah.
knowledge really is the best safeguard. And of course, education brings us to something you've always emphasized. ACI, Accelerating Continuous Improvement. You link technology back to people's competence and capability. How do AI tools like ChatGPT support that mission of continuous learning? I mean, can they truly help professionals enhance their critical thinking, or do we risk letting AI think for us?
Well, you've answered the question in that very last part. AI can never think for us. We
Yes.
must never, ever let us think for us. Again, I go back to people, and when people watch this podcast, they've only got to look at your, what's the word for it again? Your enthusiasm when you answered that question and posed that question right at the very end. I could see the look on your face. And then when I answered it, the grin, the smile, the enthusiasm, that is why it can't, AI can never replace a situation like you and I are doing at the moment. We're
Mhm.
talking, we're discussing issues,
Yeah.
we're discussing the benefits, right? That's the reason why we have developed the course, is to demonstrate that human beings can't be replaced in the learning process. They can't be replaced and can't form part of accelerating continuous improvement.
Hmm.
And as I was saying, at the very start of the program will be a couple of our podcasts, and this will probably be one of them, where we are talking about the issues. We talk about the inability of chatbot and AI to protect our data, the inability to be open and transparent. And that is something that is very, very dear and legally important for everyone to understand, because
Hmm.
that's when primary duty of care comes into it. We have our own primary duty of care to think for ourselves, right? And just give you a quick idea of how this works. For argument's sake, when you come out of a building and you step onto the street, right? You look to the left and look to the right, because if you don't, you might get bowled over, right?
Hmm.
AI and a robot can never do that for you. Okay. Now, maybe if you want to go down that path, if it's a robot, you'll step out and another robot might run over the top of that robot. Okay. Bully for them.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is what I'm saying. No, AI and chatbot will never form a part of our accelerating continuous improvement, because we are not teaching and training robots. We're teaching, training, and being part of the professional development journey of people like yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's such a powerful message, Ian. And honestly, a bit of a wake up call. AI might make us faster, but it's still our responsibility to stay smarter and, do critical thinking. And I like how you framed it, that tech could be possibly be a partner in progress, but not a shortcut for it. And before we wrap up, Ian, let's talk about what lies ahead. As AI continues to evolve, where do you see the biggest opportunity or perhaps the biggest threat for businesses, especially when it comes to human and machine collaboration? How can leaders prepare to leverage AI not as a replacement for people, but as an enabler or smarter, more sustainable growth?
Well, that's where I think we will remain at this stage until they can demonstrate openness, transparency, and demonstrate above all ethics. We don't see where they can form that part. Machine learning can never replace human intelligence, can never replace part of that accelerating continuous improvement process, as I said, which is going on all the time and clearly open and demonstrated by you and I discussing the issues together, on this podcast and all the previous ones and the ones in the future. So we don't see it forming that part. And I make the point to the organisations I speak to is this has to remain in the people's domain. It's our responsibility. It's the leader's responsibility to bring people up from a new employee to allow them that stepping stone all the way up to a director, managing director, supervisor, doesn't matter what it is, that's called accelerating continuous improvement and must always remain in the people's domain, not a machine.
Yeah. And AI might even hinder progress. I was just thinking if people or the organizations rely on it entirely, because it makes the people lazy. And we
And
cannot
that's
just rely on machines.
yeah, and that's what I think I've demonstrated in this podcast is it
Yes.
does. It makes them lazy, and if you become lazy, you won't get up in the morning and go to work, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you'll find your bank balance is not sustaining your way of life.
Yeah.
Then you've got to go and look for another job, and maybe then there'll be a robot doing that job. Then you've got to ask your question, well, okay, what am I going to do? You can't be a couch potato the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. So, as always, it's been such a privilege having you here on X-Rays TN. Your insights remind us that conversation around AI is about mindset,
Yes,
where
yes, it is. And just to remind everyone, there will be a link at the bottom of the this latest podcast to our new course.
uh-huh.
And again, just to repeat, I don't see any avenue for machines replacing people in the learning process.
Yes, we're going to include that link definitely. And we're walking away from this episode seeing tech a little differently, with more curiosity, but with a lot more responsibility, I would say.
Yes,
So
yes,
thank you, Ian. And if you guys would like to learn more about their training programs or their unique course about understanding AI, ChatGPT, and chatbots, you can visit aciglobal.com.au. It's a brilliant resource for leaders and professionals who want to stay competitive and future ready. And to our X-Rays family, thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to check out our platform, xrays.com, and podcasts on Spotify or Amazon Music so you never miss an episode. Until our next one, this has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X-Rays.